Friends, welcome to this conversation that I'm having with Mariaan Van Zyl. Mariaan Van Zyl is from Switch On to Life, and she's a professional life coach. She's a friend. She's a mother of 2 children. And Mariaan, net just before I do anything else, maybe you can just tell me, where do you find yourself during this COVID crisis? Tell me where you are, what's happening.
Cool. So, hello, thank you, Ross. Thank you for the opportunity and for having me. It's such a privilege to talk to you and to talk to you guys. So at the moment, I am in lockdown, but I'm also having the privilege to go see clients and with regards to lockdown, we are here at home and I'm with my 2 kids here as well. And they're loving it. They think it's like 24/7 holiday. But yeah, for the parents, it isn't also all holiday, but yet it's still an opportunity to make good memories. And for those times when the opportunities are a little bit challenging, it's an opportunity to grow. So
amazing.
Yeah,
so
that's
Mariaan,
where we are
in your practice and in your experience with people, tell me, what do you experience? What do you see people struggle with during this lockdown period?
Sure, Ross. I must say there's many things that clients present that's not necessarily out of the ordinary. So but the intensity of what they are experiencing is different. So obviously it's more intense. The pressure of what such a difficult and challenging time holds for each one of us, really starts to squeeze us, Yeah. And whatever, is in there that was perhaps there because of its content or its, circumstances are easy, then we don't need to utilize all our resources, our internal resources in such a way and use our capacities to such an extent than in a crisis time. And I think when we are faced with such a time, we realize we need every inch of our internal resources and we need every bit and part of our capacity and our efforts. And I think people then realize, sure, perhaps, I don't think perhaps sometimes they realize, and that's what we want to talk about, self-awareness eventually, but, they find it a challenge with regards to their capacity and with regards to the effort and the challenge that they find themselves in, and that creates that intense emotion. So I must say, people come with the same kind of challenges, whether that is facing with the same kind of relationships they have. Now it's just more pronounced. The problem that they might have had is just a little bit more pronounced. And for some people, yes, there is direct, but there are the major emotions that I am experiencing is that people are fearful, that people are anxious, and that makes people feel a little bit out of control of their life and their what's lying ahead. An uncertainty that really rocks the boat for people, and that makes people emotional.
Yeah, so the sense of being overwhelmed, being thrown into a situation where I have no control, whether it's just relationally or whether it's economically or in the country. And then secondly, saying it's intensified because people are locked up in their homes many times, or their work or pressure situations out of control. Mariaan, how do you typically help? If we can sit down and I'm in my home now and you on that side of the screen, so how do you typically help people in this time? What do you present them with? How do you coach them?
Cool. I just want to also, before I dig into the detail of how I would want to help, it helps to know that, again, how what really helps to know that when we want to grow, we need to see opportunities for growth. And it's often that people, when they come for coaching or they sign up for a program, they've raised their hand. They're willingly entering into an opportunity to grow. So they're willingly saying, okay, obviously challenges will come. Obviously, I'm going to learn things. I'm going to have to unlearn things. So there's a sense of willingness that they enter an opportunity to grow. But I think in a time such as this, with crisis and, where we're in with massive challenges, not only health challenges, but financial challenges, political challenges, where people really feel fearful or anxious about, uncertain about. I think there's so many people that is now presented with this situation that they find themselves where they did not sign up to grow. They didn't enter a course to grow. They just wanted to continue their life, okay? But now the thing is, everybody is in this situation. And my encouragement is always to have that mindset, to have the encouragement of everything is an opportunity. So, in the book of James, it speaks of, let trials and problems cause you to grow in your endurance, that capacity that we have that stretches us, trials and problems stretches us. It's an opportunity to make us stretch our capacity and our endurance to run this race, but then let the endurance cause your character to strengthen. And that speaks to me of maturity, of growth. So that, I love that scripture. It's such a profound understanding of that is exactly what difficult times present. Now, whether we have willingly stepped into that difficult time or challenge or not, it is still an opportunity to stretch our capacity and our endurance and allow that stretching to make our character grow and us mature. So I'm that's my mindset, and that's usually the hope I want to bring across to people. But so
amazing.
So can I continue?
Yes, but this is amazing. It is important to understand the mindset or the motive and the choice, the agency. I'm going to choose to respond to the situation. Absolutely. Once someone responds, typically, how do you help?
Cool. So, I like the fact that you say we choose that, Chase, because that is a choice. So the following few things that I will speak about is the fact that we need to become aware and then choose what are we going to do with that awareness. So it really is about, so many, theories and things speak about having that choice, from understanding that there's an internal locus of control, that we can choose what we do with what situations present us. So another big picture concept is that we want to unlearn the things that is not us, so that we are not deceived or drawn into situations and people's behaviors through the fears that those woundedness is causing us to be drawn into, but that we start becoming aware of those wounded things and lies that we need to unlearn, so that we can start seeing ourselves more clearly. Why? Because then we will be able to respond out of who we are in situations, not out of what the situation is making me and what other people's behavior is eliciting in me. But I am not, because we're not human reactions, right? So we are human beings that can choose to respond. So God has given us a will, right? So, and that choice is ours to decide, who am I going to be in the situation? And if I have the awareness and the understanding of who I am and who I'm not, I am much better capable of deciding this is how I'm going to respond, no matter the anxiety, no matter the fear, no matter the hype of the person's behavior or the situation. I can decide, I can choose. So let me explain, how that's a journey into to move towards that kind of stability in character. It's obviously something that nobody attains, but practicing these following steps helps us make that kind of setting permanent. So practice makes permanent, not perfect. Practice makes permanent. We want to get into permanent habits that's healthy for us. So I am speaking of healthy habits. The first thing, so there's 3 overall themes that helps people grow, and the first thing is to address our toxic thinking, and the second one is to be empathic, not only with ourselves. Yes, that starts being empathic with ourselves, but with others, to be able to set boundaries empathically so, that is healthy, and that we can take responsibility for ourselves, and then being able to handle conflict, not only within ourselves, but in others. But, if I start with toxic thinking, it's firstly, we need to become aware in these kind of situations where we get triggered, whether that is for political, financial, or health reasons. Just become aware. It's actually such a simple exercise or technique, yet it is the most underrated and underused concept. So I think it's sometimes fooled in its simplicity, but it's just take a step back, gain perspective, become aware of what am I feeling right now. In your teaching on Sunday, it speaks so beautifully of even use a chart that you can help yourself identify what am I feeling and what about this situation is making me feel this way, because that helps us understand where does this emotion comes from. Because I need to understand that emotions is a beautiful thing that is there for a reason. It's the reason to motivate and move us into behavior. That is what emotion is for. It's a chemical reaction. It's just a chemical reaction, yet we make decisions within that few seconds of chemical reaction, but it's important because we physically feel our emotions. So it's it's one of the most strongest experiences us as a person have. So just becoming aware, I'm feeling a sensation, I'm feeling emotion. And I want to encourage you, especially if it's intense and especially if it's frequent, please identify those emotions, because it is almost like a flag. It's telling you, Mariaan, pick up, something is bothering, something is being played over and over and over in your mind. And if you're not going to take hold of it, again, scripture says take captive, but we need to take hold of it and understand what is it that I'm allowing to run. It's a thinking pattern that's being allowed to run. And the scary thing is if we are allowing toxic thinking patterns that goes back to childhood woundedness, where we might have experienced some lack of affirmation and lack of validation perhaps, and that created fear and anxiety experiences in us, where we feel we're not good enough. And whenever there is uncertain and fearful experiences now in life, even as an adult, we cannot help but have our perspective tainted by those memories, and that influences the intensity of our emotions, because that thinking pattern is still connected to the memory. So it helps for us to make those connections. What about the situation makes me feel so extremely anxious or so extremely upset? To have that conversation with yourself and even with a loved one, I want to encourage you. So because what we allow to run around in our head, we become consumed by. And so the danger or the flag or the danger here is that if it's a toxic thinking that we are allowing, it's undisciplined thinking patterns that just runs around in our mind. And when it runs, it feeds, it becomes stronger, because, the more something happens, the stronger it becomes. The more we do something just with good stuff, the more we jog, the fitter we become. Okay, it's the exact same thing. So, we want to recognize that we need to stop that toxic thinking, and we need to substitute and debate it with what is healthy. And God can help us with what is healthy. Okay. That is a way, that's a big topic as well. Yeah.
So, Mariaan, so
yes.
First step is awareness. To consider the influence of the emotion, to be aware, to name it.
Yeah.
And
yes.
But you also, something that you said is important. You said we look at the impact that it has on us.
Yeah.
The emotional,
absolutely.
What measure the impact.
Where's it coming from? There we go.
Yeah. How severe is it? You looked at the intervals. How frequently is it? And then you also mentioned something of, so we identify, we look at the impact and the influence, to scale it in a sense. The severity.
Yes.
How does it influence us? And to take stock. Is this getting worse? Is it getting better? I must respond. I must intervene.
There we go. Yeah. Yes, we must do something. Okay. So I want to add to that doing, because this intense of emotions and the thinking patterns that it might link to makes us feel out of control, that we don't have a sense of control. And that intensifies the emotions even further. So what is empowering for us to realize that if I am starting to become aware and understand what am I feeling, where does this come from, and I'm starting to make the connections, and I realize, oh, but I can choose to respond differently to this situation and have an influence in this person's behavior or in this situation and environment. Because remember, emotions are contagious. The moment we start behaving out of an emotion, you know, it rubs off on other people. So if we're choosing out of a healthier, calmer state, we will have calmer emotions following, and we will have that kind of influence. So I want to encourage you, you know, that kind of sense of empowerment. If we can become aware and take ourselves back to what, you know, that this is not a state that is saying that we don't have value, or that I am hopeless, or that I am completely out of control. I still have a choice. We always have a choice. We don't often feel like it, we have, but if we realize we have a choice, we can respond and say and behave in ways that is empowering and calmly, and can have an influence. And yeah, so that's helpful. So that's the toxic thinking area.
Yeah, so first of all, toxic thinking, and then you mentioned something about empathy, but you started with empathy with yourself. So tell me about that.
Cool. Yeah. So I know everybody knows what is empathy, and often some people wish they had more empathy, or some people wish they got more empathy. Okay. So empathy is a hot topic, and especially in times when things are difficult. Empathy is like the gateway. I love how Brené Brown speaks of empathy. I want to encourage you to listen up about what she says about it. But I love the fact that, say for instance, we want to get across the river. On the other side of the river is the calm, is the journey we need to walk. The bridge is vulnerability. So we need to face what we need to face. So we need to become aware. What about the situation is making me so upset? You know, it's this deep sense of fear, this deep unsettlement of, you know, am I going to be okay? You know, and that kind of vulnerability, engaging with that kind of vulnerability is like the bridge to the other side. But guess what? The gateway to that, to get onto the bridge of vulnerability, is empathy. Because without empathy, we would just shut, you know, almost to face that. But with empathy allows us to say, it's okay. Can you hear me? I see my connection is unstable. Okay. But you know, empathy is like the gateway, allowing us to cross and to feel that it's okay, that it would be respected, that it would be safe. So yeah, empathy is not sympathy. It's not taking responsibility for other people, but it's coming alongside and telling somebody, validating and acknowledging. So that's a massive thing. It's not saying, oh no, it will, this epidemic is gone, everything would be okay again. No, how do you know? So no, that's not empathy. Okay, so that's silver lining it, and sometimes people feel very discouraged when they hear that kind of help. Empathy is acknowledging, sure, I can see that this is quite upsetting. You know, what is happening for you? Please share with me. And all of a sudden, the person feels validated, accepted, and affirmed in that they may feel what they need to feel to help them, because they have their own answer. The emotion is just so intense and overwhelming at that moment that they need a space where they can allow it to get out, in order for them to get back to sanity, to get back to, you know, rational thinking. We don't have to, when we see somebody's overwhelmed with emotion, clouded with emotion, we don't have to think, oh, I need to help them, I need to save them, I need to rescue them, because they can't think for themselves. No, they can. They just need a time, like mist in front of the sun, that just needs to go away again. And you can drive fast on the highway again. But when there's mist, you can't drive fast. So it's just validating, acknowledging what you're seeing in front of you. And that also with yourself. So firstly, when you feel anxious, fearful, etc., upset, angry, to help to acknowledge, stay back, become aware of it, ask, you know, sure, I'm feeling fearful, I'm feeling anxious, what's happening for me? what about the situation is making me feel that way. So yeah, that's the empathy part that I really think is important.
Yeah. So to not take ownership for other people's emotions, in terms, it's not I cannot fix them. I cannot be the savior. I can't load myself.
Yeah.
But I'm also not cold saying, not my circus, not my monkey, your problem.
Yeah.
But what we are saying is, because that's not also helpful for me, but acknowledging the need, acknowledging the pain, and moving forward. Yeah.
Yes. So it's that interdependence. It's not a codependence of you're upset, so I am responsible. So I feel guilty, so I need to respond and behave in pleasing ways or in whatever ways I feel triggered into, because I think I'm responsible and I need to get you back to calm again. No, we're never responsible to get somebody anywhere. Okay. Why? Because if we think of boundaries in a yard-like sense, we all get it that, if you think of it in a house, a yard that we own, that, I am not responsible for my neighbor's grass. She needs to cut it. Okay, she can't be angry at me because she's disappointed in an expectation she had that I, now as her new neighbor, will cut her lawn. Okay, that would be irrational. But so we see that so clearly in the physical, but we don't see that emotionally. Okay, when we come into a relationship, especially new ones and not romantic relationship, every relationship. And because we have a certain expectation, because we have a certain neediness, and we have started to have a certain impression or perspective or perception about a certain person, we thought, perhaps they will meet this need of mine. And we enter that relationship with expectation, and then that person doesn't do it, or doesn't do it fully, or doesn't do it in the way we wanted, or meet that need of safety or validation that we wanted in a certain way, and we're upset. But that now we're being irrational, like I would have been if or my neighbor would have been if she expected me to cut the lawn. So it's this understanding that it's mine to own, but it's not Fort Knox. Okay, it's mine to own, nobody else's. Okay, I've got my yard. If I want roses, I want to plant my roses. I don't have to, just because my yard is a mess now, doesn't mean somebody else can come in, and because they have overgrown a bunch of daisies and come dump a few daisies in my yard and then say, yeah, see, look, I've helped you. No, you didn't. I wanted roses, not daisies. Okay. so that person might have think they helped, but they didn't. Okay. And sometimes it might feel very disrespectful because you didn't hear me. I wanted roses. Yes, it's going to take time and trouble, but it's self-respect. It's that sense of, look at the beautiful garden I've created. It's that empowerment experience of, I have suffered, I've gone through the trouble of growing this myself and figuring it out. And the same, and that is for allowing, not allowing toxic people and behavior in our life, in our yard, but it's also, we shouldn't be the toxic behavior in people in other people's yard, where we go and enable, where we think we're helping, and when we see somebody struggling, instead of, like with empathy, instead of fixing it for them or telling them what to do, instead come alongside and validate and acknowledge what they're feeling, and then helping them, or not helping, but then validating and acknowledging so that they can move forward and decide what they want to do. So that is allowing them the self-respect to grow their own garden. So sometimes we stand in the way of people because we think we're helpful. But so that's just a nutshell of boundaries.
Just before we move off this, I just want to say that from experience, this unhealthy interdependent relationships where we take ownership for other people's lives or expect other people to take ownership for my life and my emotional state. We're mostly talking about emotional state here.
Yeah.
It's always difficult when to move away from that state, because the relationship is built in this unhealthy way. Yeah. I have to mow the lawn of my neighbor, otherwise she's unhappy.
Yes, but angry.
Once we move angry, and once we stop that, it will be a difficult space for both of us.
It will.
So maybe it's a good time to just then talk about the third thing that you wanted to say. You're speaking about
Okay.
conflict internally and conflict externally. So
Sure.
how do we help people in this difficult time, considering that we're in COVID lockdown at the moment? How do we deal with internal conflict and conflict in relationships? How do we ensure healthy emotional relationships?
Cool. Yeah, so you're touching on a very realistic thing that often people don't set clear boundaries from the start in a relationship. And sometimes it's all relationships, like parents, like siblings, like friends from primary school, it's old relationships. And that all of a sudden we now realize things that I've allowed to carry things that I shouldn't for them. And I've allowed them to carry things that I should have taken for myself. And that creates, the big emotions is usually anger from the side that they are not getting what they want or used to anymore, and guilt from my side because oops, shame, man. Now I'm not giving it to them anymore. But and both that anger will manipulate us into behaving in the old ways again, and the guilt will also manipulate us into old ways again. So it's very important to remain very aware and consistent. Consistency is so key in starting to develop healthier boundaries, and one step at a time. Not massive things, because usually the people on the other side do not understand what you're doing, and even if you try to explain, it's not where they're at. And I'm not doing that because they're not getting it. I'm saying that's not where they're at. Sorry, I don't mean disrespect, but so it's just knowing that I'm going to have to, that is the challenge of internal locus of control, needing to understand that I am going to have to get my needs met also in a healthier way. But yeah, okay, so getting to having to have that difficult conversations. So there's two ways of conflict that happens. The one is the internal conflict, and the other one is external conflict. Now, when there's external conflict, there's obviously also internal conflict, but sometimes there's only internal conflict. And that is, like being triggered in a situation or with somebody else's behavior that they are completely oblivious of, that they are perhaps upsetting you. And that kind of internal conflict often leads to external conflict. And if we can walk the first two steps, of addressing and becoming aware of our emotions and understanding where it comes from, and then having empathy with ourselves and with the other person's behavior, we might eliminate internal conflict all by itself. Because internal conflict is just that. It's just an upset. It's just a disagreement where my needs aren't getting met. So something is happening outside of me that is causing my needs not to get met anymore. And that makes, so needs and thinking patterns and belief structures is almost at the bottom, the primary sources of our psyche, and then it cause a reaction, an emotional reaction. Then our emotions come. So, and then after emotions comes our behavior. So with needs not getting met, beliefs are again fed. If I don't get the validation or the affirmation from this person, then, don't they think I'm important enough, good enough? What, are they disrespecting me? And that, now all of a sudden the anger comes and the hurt, and then they want to respond out of that. So that, just getting aware of this pattern, this, toxic pattern that we want to, start addressing. So that's internal conflict. And often just by doing that, we, diffuse the internal conflict. If you recognize the internal conflict as a boundary issue where somebody's overstepping a line that you have set, that becomes then external conflict. So, and there's a beautiful model. So I just want to, in short, the model goes, sure, I'm feeling a little bit upset. I thought, there was understanding that I want to plant my roses. I see that you like the daisies, and I can respect that. I just don't want the daisies. I really wanted the roses. How do you see it? What's happening for you? And so the daisy person can then say, sure, okay, I didn't know you don't like daisies. it's okay. I'll take my daisies. I'm feeling a little upset because I thought I was helping you, you know. And then one can respond again, yes, thank you for sharing, you know, and I love the fact that you want to help me. And thank you for listening, that I want my roses. So how can we move forward? You know, what will help you? How do you think can we now? What should we do now? How can we move forward now? Or what can we do differently that will benefit us both? And then it allows the person to respond, the daisy person, to say, yeah, well, perhaps you must say more clearly next time, you know, when I start telling you that I have a lot of daisies, don't just stay quiet. Tell me that you don't like daisies, then I won't bring the daisies. Okay. And then one, you know, and this is a time for the first two parts, the getting your toxic thinking under control, and getting the empathy working is so necessary to have healthy external conflict conversations, because this is not the time now to jump on your little horse again and to become upset and say, yeah, well, you didn't listen either. Okay, so it's not about the fact that I want roses. It's not a tennis game. So the moment we want to blame, we are trying to change and manipulate things in the external. The moment we want to say, yeah, but you didn't listen to the fact that I want roses, I'm wanting the person to change. So, and there's one major thing for external conflict that we need to accept and let go, is that we cannot change anybody. And if we are motivated to go into a conversation because we want the situation or the person's behavior or them to change in order for my problem to not exist anymore, or for my need to get met again, not a good idea. That's the expectation, setting yourself up for failure, and that's going to intensify your disappointment and your anger, because it's not going to happen. Because people don't change because we want them to. People change because they decide to. But having conflict conversations is so that both can be heard and we can move forward, not against each other, but together, connect, alongside each other, looking at the problem and saying, okay, I've heard you, you've heard me. So how do we move forward now with this situation that we have? What will be beneficial for both? How do we move forward? That is the aim. That's a healthy way of dealing with conflict. But yeah, that's the bottom line. And often we need to hear that often, because conflict is a triggering experience that makes us feel brain fog and overwhelmed, and because we get triggered and we feel attacked. And that's what happened with the brain. The part of the brain that helps us survive and fight and flee is the amygdala, and it responds in times of threat. So when threat appears, the ghost appears, when the threat appears, the amygdala cannot help but respond and take over. Okay, so it forfeits accuracy for speed, it takes over, and what it takes over with is the stored threat perspectives, and not our rational thinking. So the more we can really deal with that first point of toxic thinking, the less we will have threat memory and threat perspective in the amygdala, actually. And the less we will actually get triggered, because we don't have so much to protect. And yeah, so that's key. So the key of this conflict model, sorry, is also the fact that it is set up in such a way that nobody attacks each other. So there's an opportunity for both to share what they feel and what they need, and then a request at the end, not a demand. Because the moment we tell somebody, they respond and say, and they feel attacked or controlled, and they don't want to engage. So you want to get buy-in by asking questions, by sharing and then asking, sharing and asking. And apart from it's not violent and not causing the amygdala to respond, because then we're clouded and then it's actually useless conversation. But apart from that, it's quite empowering to know that the moment somebody else can own how they want to move forward, you will more likely get your way as to not, because people will do more often when they have come up with a solution or an answer, because they need to own it. They've come up, we can do X, Y, and Z. They will be more committed to doing what they've said than what you've said. So asking people questions and allowing them to share what they see and how they feel helps us move forward in an empowered way.
And what I love about that invitation, apart from just understanding and owning your own emotions, the invitation is so beautiful. How will we? So it's an invitation to continue with the relationship. It's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mariaan. This is really, really helpful. So understanding that we're in this COVID crisis and that what we are facing now is not anything new. It is highlighted, it is pressured, partially because the stress in the country economically, health-wise, and relationships are strained because we can't move around freely. But we understand that we are dealing with our normal humanity, our hurts and our issues and our imperfections that we brought into this crisis. But this is an opportune time, and I love it. This is an opportune time to become aware of who I am, who have I become, what are the patterns that I practiced in my life, and to take ownership for it, for my emotional state, identify it, name it, claim it, it's mine, and then to work with it. And then the beautiful pattern that you spoke about, the toxic thinking, the empathy, and the conflict that we progress with is beautiful, both internal and external. Mariaan, if I know that you've written and recorded a few things, that you have your own practice as well. Where can you invite us to a space that you work in if someone wants more information?
They're welcome to look on Facebook for Switch On to Life, or even Mariaan Van Zyl, and through that they will get to Switch On to Life. So on my Facebook page I share many things from people that I respect. So I share a lot of videos and articles and things, and people that I've followed for a very long time, etc. Their opinion that matter and their content that is good. And then also I would suggest YouTube channel of Switch On to Life again. But that's more that's more my content that I share, things like this. Or on the topics that I just shared. There's loads more on the 3 topics that I just shared. So if you're more interested, please go there. You will find it there. And then on all major podcast platforms, Switch On to Life with Mariaan is also just the videos of YouTube that I upload as audio. So if you want to listen without video, that's
amazing.
Useful.
Thank you, Mariaan. Thank you so much. Just to the friends in church and the friends watching this at the moment, we are going through a crisis as a country. Just to put it in perspective, this is not the first crisis that we faced as a people and that you have faced. Human beings are created by God to be extremely resilient. So make sure that although we encourage to have social distancing, it doesn't mean social isolation. So stay in contact with people and reach out if you need help. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mariaan. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Ross.
God bless.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.